Welcome to the fourth video in our series on how to play Glorious Fleeting Napoleonic. In this one, it's the first part of the firing sequence. We're going to split this into two videos just to keep the videos short, and this one will be covering off bombardment and volley fire. So the firing phase is broken down into three steps, which may seem overly complex, but once you get used to it, it's quick and simple, so don't be scared off by that. So the first phase is bombardment. So this is performed by artillery units and artillery attachments at long and medium range. We'll talk a bit more about this, but it's between 2 and 16 inches. The sequence is the active player fires first, you apply the results, and then the non-active player fires. Just for completeness, the second phase is skirmishing, but we'll cover this in a separate video. But this is performed by infantry units and attachments only at medium range. Fire is simultaneous. You place your skirmish markers alternately and then you attempt to remove them, but we'll cover that in the next video. And then the third phase is volley fire, so performed by infantry and artillery units and attachments at close range, so that's 0 to 2 inches. And similar to bombardment, active player fires first, you apply results, and then the non-active player fires. And I'll say it again, it seems complex, but actually it plays through pretty quickly once you get the hang of it. So bombardment, it covers artillery fire from beyond 2 and up to 16 inches, as you can see in the diagram. Medium range being 2 to 6 inches, think of that as canister fire, so you get a few more dice, and long range being 6 to 16 inches. Medium range applies to artillery units and attachments, whereas long range is artillery units only. When it comes to arc of fire, you can see in the diagram, so it's straight ahead and then 2 base widths to either side for all bombardment fire. In terms of target priorities, your first priority is targets that are at medium range and in that arc of fire. Your second priority is targets at long range and in arc. And finally, it's worth noting you cannot bombard if your unit is in volley range. So we'll cover it in volley fire section, but if you've got targets in the volley fire range, then that's who you have to fire at. This is the table on page 34 that gives you the dice that you get to use at the different for bombardments at different ranges. So all dice for bombardments hit on a 5+. At medium range, you can see there small and large units get 6 and 8 dice respectively. And then it's different if you're in square. And then long range bombardment, you get fewer dice, so 3 or 4 dice, depending on whether you, and then in brackets there, it's 4 and 5 if you're a heavy battery. We'll cover town in a separate video, but you can see there, those are the dice for town fire. Then you adjust your dice, so you get more dice or fewer dice depending on the situation, so have a read through that. And then also you can be disadvantaged, so the different things that make you count as disadvantaged. And if you are disadvantaged, you get half dice. So you don't want to be disadvantaged, of course. And then lastly, veterans, so all shooting veterans will re-roll a miss. So yeah, that's the benefit of veterans. Note that conscripts are only affected by for volley and skirmish fire, but we'll cover that separately. Then volley fire. So volley fire, you get the straight ahead arc, and then you get the support area, which is 2 inches to the side. And you can see that in the diagram. And note that if you are firing at targets only in the support area, your fire is disadvantaged, so half dice. So as an example, you've got units A and B in the straight ahead fire arc for unit 1. So unit 1 must split its dice between both A and B because they're both in that straight ahead volley firing arc. And because B has at least 50% is across the middle of 1, then that's the one that must get at least half the dice, half of 1's firing dice. Then let's imagine there's unit C. So unit C is in the support area arc, but because it's not to front and there is a target to front, 1 will not shoot at C. However, when it comes to C, and let's put another unit in there, so unit C and unit 2, so C will fire at 2 and vice versa because they're in each other's support area arc. But remember, they're both now firing at disadvantage because they're not directly ahead of each other. So half dice. And finally, just worth noting, if you're firing with 6 or more dice, so you could be a large unit with a gun attachment which gets 8 dice. If you're firing that across more than one target, you'd have to give at least each target 2 dice. There's some benefits and disadvantages, of course, for being behind flank. So what does it mean to be behind a flank or a rear? And note that this applies, we're covering this in the firing video, but this applies to combat, to charges, that kind of thing. So the rule is consistent. So basically, you look at the straight line of the unit. So you look at unit B and that yellow line, that is your front line. In this picture, A is not behind the flank of B because its center of the unit is not behind that yellow line, whereas conversely C, you can see its center there is behind that straight line of B. So C is behind the flank of B. And then D, B is obviously in a lot of trouble in this picture. D has got is behind the rear of B because its center is behind that straight yellow line to the rear. All right, so let's talk about volley fire and dice availability. So here's the table that covers this. You can see how many dice there are. So again, small units, large units get different numbers of dice. It's affected if you're in square or not. Town fire has a different rule if you're firing in and out of town. So we'll cover that in the town video. Again, you adjust dice for the situation, more dice or fewer dice. And then there are things that make you disadvantaged. Most commonly, if you were disordered or wavering, you'd fire at disadvantage, but there are a few others as well. And again, here you get half dice. And then here you get the re-rolls depending on your training quality. So at volley fire, veterans get a re-roll a miss, and conscripts re-roll a hit. Then we get to the bombardment and volley fire table on page 41, the effect of it. So bombardment and volley fire affect your movement and affects your cohesion. You see down the side there, number of hits you get. So the more hits, the more effect it's going to have naturally. And you can just read through on the table how that works. It's worth noting that guards can only drop one cohesion level from firing, whereas you can see on the table, usually if you're taking 4 or more hits, you can drop 2 levels from volley fire. But if you're guard, you can only drop 1 level. So it's one of the real benefits of guard. When it comes to firing, a unit can only be broken by volley fire. So you cannot be broken by skirmish fire or bombardment fire. You drop to wavering and it doesn't get any worse than that. You've got to basically get in close to just to make a unit rout. Units in square will come out of square if they have to retire from fire, go back more than 2 inches. We'll cover this more in the end phase rules, but just worth pointing out. And similarly, unlimited artillery who are driven back by fire and they move more than 1 inch, which is their limbered move, will then have to limber up as part of that. And finally, units in town combat can't be broken from fire, even volley fire. You've got to get in there with the bayonet and to get them out. But again, we'll cover that more in the town video. Finally, then driven back. So one of the results of firing is that a unit can be driven back. You would have seen on the previous table. Usually that's if you receive 3 hits from fire. So let's imagine unit B here in the picture receives 3 hits from A. It's driven back 3 inches from A. It moves directly to its rear, maintaining their facing. So you can see how that's done in the picture. So it goes straight back. Then of course it might bump into a unit if there's a unit behind it. In that case, you would move back as far as you could, and you just bump into that unit, and then you'd halt. Sometimes people push units up behind a friendly unit to stop them being driven back, because if you could be driven back out of volley range, and you don't want that to happen. So you stack your units. So you're basically supporting them. You're putting in strong units behind them to stop them being driven back is a common tactic. And then just one other thing that can happen is if your firing is from behind a flank, you would first turn 90 degrees and then get driven back in that direction. And similarly, if it was from the rear, you would turn 180 and be driven back. Some things to note, units don't have to take a cohesion test if another unit is driven back into them. So diagram 3 below, unit C wouldn't have to take a morale test for being driven back into. We'll see in the end phase, if units rout through you or retire through you, you do have to take a test, but not if you're driven back into. And then units driven back in the firing phase can still move in the movement phase. Sometimes you might have a no advance rule. You probably have a no advance because you took 3 hits, but you could move away. You could do other things, so it's worth remembering that. Okay, and that's it. So in the next video, we're going to cover skirmish fire. Enjoy, and we'll see you later.